President Fattah al-Sisi on Thursday visited Upper Egypt's Minya Governorate to inspect development projects implemented as part of Decent Life initiative for rural areas. The presidential tour included Masara village located in Malawi area in Minya Governorate. The village is considered the first village where the Decent Life Initiative development projects was 100% complete. Upon arriving at the village, President Sisi received a warm welcome. 1,500 volunteering members of the National Alliance for Civil Development Action lined up to receive the president. Greeting the volunteers who were at his reception during the visit, President Sisi asserted that all development projects are designed for Egyptian citizens, asserting that the state will not neglect Egyptians in rural areas, whether in the Nile Delta or in Upper Egypt. During the visit, the president had an open breakfast with the people of the village, communicating directly with them. The head of state was keen to be present and conduct an opening meeting with the people. Later, President Sisi inspected agriculture complex, dairy production center, developed post office, as well as Decent Life Initiative library, which was newly established in the village. The president also visited the School of Excellence in the same village, touring its facilities, including the theater and the chemistry lab. The president's visit to Minya Governorate also included progress achieved in developing the new Minya city. During the visit to the new Minya city, visited its STEM school and watched a documentary on such schools regarded as incubators for distinguished technology and science students. The head of state also inaugurated several other projects in Minya Governorate via video conference, including a plan to recycle waste and produce alternative fuels, the Western Upper Desert Road, Minya Day route.
Right, welcome back, and let me again welcome our guest, Dr. Ibrahim Hegazi, Professor of Business and Administration and former parliamentarian. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
And let me start here with tonight's our focus, which was today's visit of the President to Minya, one of the projects of Decent Life in Upper Egypt. Let me take your reading into statements, because the President spoke or made lots of observations and many statements during this visit.
I think it's a timing visit, especially for the Takaful and Karama initiative and the Decent Life, for many reasons. Number one, you know that Egypt is going in a very tough period of time economically, and it's not only Egypt, it's actually the whole entire world because of what's happening around us. However, I think it is very important when we look at the reforms that are currently taking place, and we all can see it very clearly, that there must be a need for a social net. And that's why it's well called even from the IMF that when you are doing your economic reforms, you have also to be considering dramatically the social net and the social balance.
Well,
and that's
we're
why the
speaking
visit
here about the voluntary works that occurred today.
Yes, I'm speaking about why the President went today in particular and talked with many villages and talking about the initiative of Decent Life.
Yes.
Because it's part of the social net. It's not just the infrastructure, but it's also the whole area of education and service provided. So that means that there is a support with the needy areas of Egypt. As an example is the Upper Egypt side. So I think it's well timed, and it's due. It was really due by the President himself. Although the Minister and the Prime Minister did a lot of visits, but when it comes from the head of the state and to show his concern and appreciation for people, and especially for the areas that are really in dire need for support from the government and from the head of the state, I think this was very crucial and very important.
Very much indeed. The President has made other visits earlier this year, in January, to some of the governorates of Upper Egypt as well. Sohag was one of them, as we remember, and there were some developmental projects that also took place. If we speak about, because there were some or let me here quote what he was saying, because he said that all development projects mainly focus on serving citizens everywhere and that the state is always keen to serve citizens in the countryside and Upper Egypt. How do you view how or the measures that have been taken by the government across Egypt in order to realize this, serve the citizens?
You can see what was announced at the end of the day by His Excellency President Sisi about the increases in pensions.
No, we'll speak about that.
But that's
what I mean here.
You know, your question was how the government showed that it cares and it is into the public side. I think this is another message. You know, instead of going back in what the government has done before, it's very important to highlight, you know, these high increases. You know, these announcements today are really.
I was getting to that.
That's what I want to delve into in terms of, you know, I think also the president at a certain point in time he mentioned that we want to show that our government is actually working for the Egyptians, not against Egyptians. Why? Because there are some, you know, quotes that say that the IMF reforms required by the country did not consider the social nest and the social balance and the social concerns. That's why the president and the government are really showing that this is not true. These are just fake news as usually.
And he said that.
And he said that, and that's why I think when he did that today and that visit to this area, and this is just a little village, part of the Decent Initiative, the Decent Life Initiative, and then finish it at the end with the announcements, that's a very clear message, whoever is trying to put rumors that doesn't have an existence. Yes, we are going into reforms. Yes, we need to do that. Yes, we need to have you know, more foreign direct investments, which is fine for Egypt. But at the same time, it's double yes that we have to be concerned about Egyptians. And this is a very clear message what happened today, either from the visit or what came out after the visit.
So let me here take the directives he gave today, because he spoke about particularly people with certain calibers and cabs in the Egyptian institutions, and
that's
those
in the public sector.
Yes, in the public sector particularly.
And that's a large number, by the way.
It is, because we're not speaking about one person or two, we're speaking across Egypt at large. And when we speak about people, we're speaking about a huge part of the budget.
Yep.
Or that will put its burden on the budget. But however, yes, the president was very much keen to say that this is to elevate the burdens on people, particularly within or the circumstances or what is going on around us. So let me here take how you view those directives that were given today. If we just discuss them, we're speaking here £1,000 per month, increasing the minimum wages.
Yeah, depends on the rank.
Yes. Exactly, depends on the rank. Increasing pensions, raising taxing.
Increasing pension by how much? That's
by 15%, and that's not.
That's a very good percentage increase in one time.
Indeed, indeed. Usually it's 2%, 3%,
yeah.
Not 15%.
No.
Yes, raising the tax exemption, and we're speaking from 24,000 to 30,000, just like that. Increasing the financial categories granted to beneficiaries of Takaful and Karama, and this is
by another 25%.
By another 25%.
These are, you know, honestly, these are huge numbers, and it's direly needed for that segment of our society.
So let me here take it from people's perspective and discuss that what you're saying, because people say, and how would that help us out, and how would that help our needs or fulfill our needs? But at the same time, they're not thinking of how this reflects on the budget of the country. So how do you view the balance that is tried to be made here?
Well, Mona, you have two separate issues. The one regarding what was announced today, and the other side is how we're going to pay or cover this extra burden on the fiscal budget of our government. But number one, if I look at the announcement today, I would put them in terms of the ranking order. Meaning that the first one talks about improving the income of the public sector.
Elevating the public, yes.
That's number one. So that's the priority. I'm not going to take them one by one. I take them in sequence. So number one priority from the president of Egypt is for that, to improve the income of the public sector. And then the second one, explaining that it actually differs from one level to the other. However, if you talk about 4 or 5 million, the number of employees in the public sector or in the government, they are not just 4 and 5. You have to multiply by average number of families. And the average number of family in Egypt is around 4. So we're talking about 20 million who will be actually affected positively by these first two announcements. Then you add another 10 or 15 million, which is the number of pension funders, and the increase of 15%. If you're talking about £2,000 as a pension, then 15% is another 200 plus extra. You see, so that's a very good increase, depending on also the level of what you are offering as pension funds. So that's the third priority. The fourth one, which is, it's okay, but it is not as crucial and as effective as the first three, which is the tax exemption from 24 to 30,000. Okay, and then the last one,
but it is, you know, sir, because as far as I am an employee, so let me tell you here, we're exempted from or rather they take taxes from us by 24 to 27%.
But you forgot the inflation rate anyway. So you see, that's what I'm trying to highlight also, that everybody is actually affected by price increases. Indeed. So we cannot deny this. This is a fact of life, and we know it, and the government actually admit it.
Yes, indeed.
But at the same time, they do admit, and they take the initiatives to correct or to negate the negative effect for the popularity of Egyptians, or the popular Egyptian man and woman who are affected by these increases in prices. Bear in mind that you are getting into Ramadan, and Ramadan is a very high spending month. So that's why the timing of such a visit and the announcement, regardless of what...
was very timely.
Yeah, regardless of why, and no, it's the when. The when is highly needed. It is very important for Egyptians to feel that, yes, the government care.
And increasing the financial categories granted by or beneficiaries of Takaful and Karama, because this is another side.
But that's one of the requirements of the IMF, by the way.
Okay.
So, yeah, they do require us to do many things, like say, including the exchange rate and many other things. But as important as that, which what if you read it, is that you should actually be concerned about. And as a matter of fact, they requested also the Takaful and Karama to be increased from 120 billion to another, I think, 20 billion, and they are asking for more. And that's why, the IMF will be monitoring not just the economic reforms, but also monitoring the actions, the social impact actions of our government. So it's all fell into a very positive outcome in the future.
But you know that Takaful and Karama was also made even before the IMF and its demands, right?
Yeah,
These
I know.
were presidential
they are,
initiatives.
by the way, they are all initiative of our president,
yes.
So nobody denied that. But the question is, I'm asking you, Egypt, to do some reforms, okay? But at the same time, I'm asking you also to take care of the social part of our reforms, and that's very important. So they appraised the initiative.
Yes, because we are going on track despite all difficulties they are putting.
No, they're not difficult. No, they're not difficult. I mean, if you take honestly and you talk the truth, I mean, these were highly due long before.
Yes, yes, indeed. But they are burdens, particularly, I'm not speaking that they were not supposed to be taken anyway, because if any country wants to go on track, these economic reforms should have been taken lots of years ago. But
let me ask you a question.
But in such circumstances?
No, let me answer the question, because we always look at the negative, the empty side of the glass. Why don't we look at the full side of the glass? Meaning that with these reforms, we're getting better tourists now, we're getting more potential for export, we're getting less usage of import, so there is a sort of
That's
import
what we would
substitution.
be.
So why always you look at these requirements as a burden? At the same time,
actually,
at the
it's
same
the
time they are
timing of the
positive.
requirements,
It's too,
particularly.
we should have done it before.
Right. Before we move on, and we'll move to that area where you spoke about and this positive side. Because
It is positive. Yeah, you have to be.
I'm very much I'm very much enthusiastic to understand this optimistic side. Yes. Before we move on and before we go ahead with our discussion, let me first take this second report, and the state will do what it can to make life easier for people. Let's watch.
Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli said that concerted efforts exerted by various parties to push forward the development efforts in Upper Egypt with a view to improving the standard of living of citizens there. Since its establishment in 2018, the Upper Egypt Development Authority, UEDA, has been undertaking its duties as per its strategy aimed at achieving integrated and sustainable development in the governorates of Upper Egypt within the framework of Egypt's Vision 2030. The authority implements development projects in all fields, he said, noting that it carries out 17 projects in the agricultural, social, industrial and environmental domains. Regarding the social field, 3 craft industrial complexes are built in the governorates of Upper Egypt within the framework of Decent Life Presidential Initiative, which aims at supporting small industries and providing job opportunities to raise the standard of living of citizens in Upper Egypt, Saleh said. The first and second complexes, located in the villages of Balana and Ramadi Kibili in Aswan, and the third in the village of Bani Wasil in Suhag. Each craft complex includes 30 workshops for small and micro-scale industries and provides about 370 direct and indirect job opportunities. The Prime Minister said President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has repeatedly ordered that Upper Egypt and its inhabitants to be on top of the National Action Agenda, noting in this regard that the investments pumped into Upper Egyptian governorates over the past 7 years amounted to 1.5 trillion Egyptian pounds, out of a total of 7 trillion Egyptian pounds invested by the state nationwide. Madbouli said nearly 324,500 families in Suhag have benefited from the Takaful and Karama social protection program since January 2015, with monetary support amounting to 11.5 billion Egyptian pounds. The Prime Minister added that the state has been focusing over the past 4 years on providing infrastructure for industrial zones, especially in Upper Egypt. He added that the government is keen on raising the livelihood of citizens through providing appropriate housing units, facilities, education and transportation. President el-Sisi has inaugurated recently a number of developmental projects and has asserted that Egypt is pressing ahead down the road toward upgrading Upper Egypt and exerting strenuous efforts with a view to achieving development and stability and providing a decent life for citizens in all the southern parts of the country, especially that all the realized achievements were made by Egyptian hands.
Right, welcome back, and back to you, Dr. Ibrahim, and we were speaking about the positive aspect. Please.
In order to see the positive aspects, you have to see why we have positive aspects. What's the reason for positive aspects? The reason for positive aspects is the government is actually focusing on trying to find reduce the gap of our current account and our trade balance. meaning that we try to rely less on the hard currency, and we try to focus more on the strengthening our Egyptian currency for the time being. So number one, I think with what happened in terms of the evaluation of the currency, and that's very clear to everybody, there are lots of positive impacts. And it's not only Egypt. We have other countries who did before. One of them is Turkey, by the way. And number one, tourism. You have really a good trend of tourism, and the forecast that I have here in terms of the revenue for tourism for 2022 is well exceeding the $10 billion. Compared to 2021, it was around $3.84 billion. So that's by itself an increase in one area. The second area is exports. And a lot of my colleagues who work in exports, they're doing a good job right now. And there is new feeding industries that are really arising to help the packaging and to help the shipping and transportation. So that's another area where the government is focusing on. The third one is import substitution. And that's very important, because that means on the other side, if you reduce the level of import, then you reduce the request for hard currency. And at the same time, you are going to domesticize, or the domesticizations of the know-how and technology in Egypt here. So that will increase also
the industry.
In the industry and the economy overall, and that will increase the level of employment, and which also means that you are going to decrease the level of unemployment. So, and imagine that with all the resources, the natural resources that we have, and with these economic reforms, definitely the GMP of Egypt will grow more. And so if we were developing 6 and 7% before COVID, now I think we are going to go back over a number of years. So these are extremely positive issues. Plus, foreign direct investment. Do you know that if I talk about UAE as FDI, the UAE, United Arab Emirates, FDI is in the vicinity of $10 billion a year. And in Egypt here, currently, the number is 5.8. And I think our potential as country, when compared with the neighboring countries, I think we will get more. I mean, if we get 5.8 with all what is happening right now, during all of these reforms, and before it there was the COVID area, I think it means that Egypt's potential for growth is there. And don't forget, then when we talk about 110 million citizens living in Egypt, that means that the demand side of our economy is extremely a good demand side. Add to this that we have a young generation, a young population, that most of the Egyptian citizens are below the age of 45, which is more than 60 or 70%. Put all of these factors and put the new initiative done by the government, which is the golden license, then you can realize that the government now is focusing on bringing FDI because of many factors: for growth of the GDP, for increasing employment, for reducing the request for hard currency, and more than this is technology transfer to Egypt. So what else you need more than this to tackle on the short term such a very serious issue that we're facing currently?
Since you spoke about FDIs, and there have been some measures taken by the country, particularly the different announcement by the country that it is putting a priority list for investments, particularly in the area of industry and agriculture.
Well, it's a long list.
If you may just highlight that.
Well, let's first talk about who is eligible for such the golden license. Two types of corporations or companies. Number one, companies that will invest fresh hard currency. That's a requirement, that you have to bring hard currency to the country through an Egyptian bank. But this money should be invested in a strategic national project. And the government is putting the list of strategic national projects. Number one is renewable energy and new energy. Number two is the petroleum and the mineral wealth. Number three is transportation, industry, communications, information technology, housing, tourism, environment, agriculture, and then the health sector. All of these are example of projects that are concerned about the national. The second one, if you are going to have a partnership either with the private sector or with the state itself for the infrastructure and for transportation projects and of course energy and so forth. So this gives the incentives of 50% reductions in terms of the import duties, 2% only, and of course tax haven for more than 7 years. All of these incentives geared toward improving the foreign direct investment into Egypt.
So this is what is called the golden license.
The golden license, yeah. Did I say?
Yes.
Golden license, yeah.
So yes, but I'm just reiterating that what you meant here is
the golden license, which is, purpose of it is FDI. And that's why I think with the devaluation of our currency, then the FDI will look more attractive.
very much indeed. If we get back to our episode today, and we speak about initiatives, you spoke about the importance of some steps taken by the state in order to be able to just move with balance to the situation.
Yes.
Also, there are some of the presidential initiatives that are covering the social areas, as for instance, decent life. Today was one of the villages of decent life, because decent life was first made for urban areas and for villages, and then it extended its umbrella to take several services and several other developmental projects under its umbrella. Let me take how the government make such a balance. What you said at the very beginning. First, try to alleviate the burdens from the citizen, and at the same time be able to commit to its obligations.
Yes, because you have two things, Takaful and Karama and Decent Life are actually complementing each other, whereby Takaful and Karama is more the monetary and financial side of support, and then Decent Life is about the infrastructure. First of all, it's about the houses, how refurbishing and having the decent living standards for Egyptians. But as you said, they added the service surrounding, because you cannot just remodel and renovate and develop good, decent houses without the services surrounding, including hospitals, or not hospitals, clinics, as well as education. That's why the president today visited the SEM. SEM, this is the highest level of education, the standards, for quality education. So this is why they call decent life. So decent life is not just the place where I'm going to stay in, it's also the services surrounding this place. And the service is number one, education,
the atmosphere,
and health. Yes. However, there is an important factor that also we have to stress, which is education, because all of these are good things. But if you do not help the education side of Egypt to be in line with the competitive advantages existing in other countries with the education side, and you can see that technology play a major role now. So I think also the government is adding this by stressing the same education rather than the traditional, national schools. If you notice which schools the president today visited, they were not just the regular school, it was the SEM school. It's a government school, but it's the higher level of education in terms of the know-how that is disseminated during these 12 years of high schooling.
Isn't that what is required those days for
exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Children? You mean here that such a kind of education should be generated?
Exactly, and that's why when you talk about SEMs to be in villages in Upper Egypt, that's a message from the government that although we're trying to improve the standard of living for Egyptians, we are also trying to improve their education as well, which is part of the service of decent life.
Indeed, indeed. If we're speaking about the social network and decent life and Takaful and Karama, seriously, decent life is making a good job.
Sure.
It has been doing lots and lots of efforts. If we speak about how we are trying to commit to our obligations by turning into, for an instant, industry and agriculture. Those two sectors, we've just heard the president last week when he was in Sinai, and he spoke about the development in Sinai and the importance of such step. And he also said that there are certain priorities for the state right now, which is turning into industry and agriculture.
Yes.
Your reading?
My reading is very simple, one word: self-sufficiency. If you try to go out of this, critical period of time, the only way out is for you to be self-sufficient. You look at wheat, and look, what happened during the Russian and Ukraine war. It highlighted and stressed more the focus on wheat importation, and that's why the government now is shifting toward more agriculture of wheat crops and so forth. And that's
soybean and maize.
and whatever Egyptian need to be self-sufficient. I'm not talking about luxurious product. I'm talking basic necessity product. And number one basic necessity is wheat. So that's a trend. That's agriculturalizations of import substitution, which is very, very important. So part of developing the self-sufficiency that I think the government is moving forward toward that, in addition to the issue of export promotion and improvement. I think you need to have the agro-industrial, so we have what we call the vertical integration. You start by having the agriculture, and then you try to develop the industry as a feeding for the industrial part, which also means that our product in agriculture, and this is standards, Egypt has a good name for many of our fresh products. I'm talking about mangoes, I'm talking about strawberries, I'm talking about potatoes, sweet potatoes. They're sold very expensively in England, for instance. Many other products that we produce in Egypt, but we need to boost the incentive for them so that the size of agricultural production of this kind of crops will help our export as well. But in the same time, it will give us the self-sufficiency.
Dr. Ibrahim, we're running out of time, and here I really need to end up with one important issue. What do we need at this upcoming stage?
From who?
Ourselves. Let's start with ourselves. Indoor.
Ourselves, if I tell you about myself, because we are all in the same pot. I think we have to trust and to have faith in God, number one. And I have to tell you that our name was mentioned, Egypt's name was mentioned, Masr, several times in the Quran. So that didn't come by coincidence. It means that this country will always be blessed by God. So that's number one. Number two, if we trust in God, we trust also in our future, that the future should be bright, because nothing stays at the bottom most of the time. It's always curved. It's always 7 years go up and up. And this is the history, not just Hegazi saying that. So this is, if you ask me now what to do, have faith in God, trust that the future will be bright, because the government is going in the right direction. I know there are pains, but we always tell our students, no pain, no gain. The question is, can we sustain that? Can we afford to stay solid and strong until we get out of this? Inshallah, this will happen.
Yes, with God's will, this will happen. Dr. Ibrahim Hegazi, Professor of Business and Administration and former parliamentarian, thank you so much for being with us.
For inviting me.
For input, it was a pleasure as usual.
My pleasure.
Our pleasure. And dear viewers, many thanks for watching. Next Sunday would be another debate, another important topics. Many thanks for watching, and good night.